If you're looking for the best generic Space Marine Terminator choice, this video is for you. We'll run through their synergies, tactics, and stats, and without further ado, let's dive right in. Firstly, my third place are the Relic Terminator Squad. I'm not sure why they kept this unit, even though they have gotten rid of so many units in the 10th edition and consolidated a lot of stuff, and these guys probably should have been first on the list, but hey, more models is always good. They are a good all-round option. They cost 200 points, which is not terrible. 40 points per model is kind of okay for what you get for the price. You get the upgraded defensive stat line, which is T5, 3 wounds, 2+ save, 4+ invulnerable save, the standard Terminator profile of 10th edition, which means that you get good protection from small arms fire, which you should be very well protected, and even the heavier anti-tank stuff still is not guaranteed to get rid of a Terminator on each successful hit and wound. And I really like the approach they have with the Terminators now, and it makes sense to have them in your Space Marine list now. Don't get me wrong, they were awesome in 9th edition, it's just they are, I think, even better now in 10th. Melee output generally is 3 attacks each at strength 8, AP 2, damage 2 with their power fist, probably the best profile you have. And you can also take the chain fist, which is almost the same, but you hit on 4s. Instead, you get anti-vehicle 3+ rule. That's very useful, especially if you don't have a lot of anti-vehicle things in your list in general. So I would recommend going for the chain fist if you don't have other ways to deal with high toughness vehicles. Otherwise, power fist is the better choice here, because hitting on 4s is kind of bad, especially if you don't have oath on the target that you're hitting at. Also, the special quirk of the Relic Terminator Squad is that you can exchange all of your power fists into the power swords, power weapons, which are essentially you get extra attack, but your profile degrades from 8 -2/2 to 5 -2/1, which is significantly worse. So I don't know why would you do that. Or you can go for the Lightning Claws, which gets you even more attacks, so you get 5 attacks per model, but you get rid of all your shooting and get rerolls to wound. So that's probably the best choice in terms of volume. And if you don't really care about the Stormbolt or shooting, I would probably go for the Lightning Claws. Especially if you can get something like +1 to wound from the chaplain onto them, or +1 to wound from Honor the Chapter, then you can start really punch up into higher toughness things, because you will be wounding on 5s with full rerolls, even without oath. Don't get Cyclone Missile Launcher like the regular Terminators, but they can have the Reaper autocannon instead of the Assault one. You get 4 shots at strength 7, AP 1, damage 1 with sustained hits 1, which is probably math is like 1 less shot on average than the assault cannon, but you get AP 1 and you still get the devastating wounds rule, which is why you really want to take this gun. Sergeant can take a fancy gun like a plasma blaster or the Volkite. Volkite is just essentially a thing that can give you some mortal wounds if you're lucky to roll a 6 to wound, and the plasma is a plasma. Nothing to write home about. This is not why you want this squad, but it's fine to have just extra 2 shots of a strength 8, AP 3, damage 2, and a chance to kill your sergeant. These don't get the teleport homer ability, which we'll discuss later, but they retain the Fury of the First, which is +1 to hit against your Oath of Moment target, and you also can ignore all the hit rolls modifiers and your ballistic skill modifiers and weapon skill modifiers. So they ignore all that nasty stuff. They will be hitting on 3s if they are hitting something. They're OC1 like the regular Terminators, which is fine. That's what they should be. They are elite units, so they're not supposed to have very high objective control. I wish there was some war gear choice or something to get them at least up to OC2, because really it really hurts when you have a full squad and something like a 5-man OC2 troops choice comes along and ruins the party for you. But even though the OPSEC rule isn't with us anymore, it still kind of is, because of how different the OC parameter can be. Like, for example, we're not going to talk about specialized Terminators in this video. I'm going to do a separate one just for the specialized option, just to compare what Space Marines have in that sense. But, for example, Grey Knights can have their battle line Brotherhood Terminators go up to OC3, and the Relic Terminators here are OC1, so for each one Grey Knight you need 3 of these Terminators to match the OC parameter, which I think is kind of unfair. But I digress. The second place is Terminator Squad, the regular one. And why I think it's the better choice here is because of your ability to have the teleport Homer with them, and also the Fury of the First. And also, I just really like the fact that you can get more shots from the assault cannon, or you can take the Cyclone. We don't have the Cyclone yet on the regular, on the new models, but I still believe that it's going to happen very soon. GW promised us that, and Cyclone is quite good to have as an additional source of some anti-tank / anti-elite infantry shots. You don't get a choice of lightning claws or power source for the entire squad here, but otherwise the melee profile is the same, so you can take either the power fist or the chain fist, whatever you think you'll need more. For that extra 5 points, you get the whole teleport Homer ability, which I think is worth it in most cases. It's essentially where you put a marker at the beginning of the game, somewhere not in your opponent's deployment zone, and then you can use 0 command points rapid ingress to teleport onto that marker at the end of your opponent's movement phase, which is very powerful, especially if you do the positioning of the marker carefully, because that's where the danger is. If you position the marker too close to your opponent, what they can do is just put a unit there onto the marker, and then you will not be able to use the ability at all. Preferably, you should put the marker far enough from your opponent that they cannot get to that place fast enough, or if they get to that place, they will be under fire of all of your guns, so they will be under pressure from all your other units, and it means that the marker is protected. And getting your Terminators at the end of your opponent's movement phase there is beneficial, because then you can at the end of in your next turn you can move, you can potentially advance if you use the assault doctrine and charge, and do all that stuff with extra 5 inches of movement under your belt. And obviously the advance if you decided to advance. So you're getting quite a lot of mobility for extra 5 points per squad, which I believe is worth it. You have great synergy with these guys with the doctrines, as we already explored the example. Honor the chapter, of course, where you can get +1 to wound and extra AP potentially on the charge with them, and that's important because you're strength 8 with power fist, so you are wounding almost all vehicles in the game apart from rare cases like Dread Knights on 5s, and then you can get to something more manageable like 4s. The squad tactics is also beautiful because you don't want your Terminators to be charged. They are tough, but they're not as tough as to take almost any punch whatsoever. So if you can get away from some of your opponent's charges, and which is what I believe squad tactics is best used for, then it's a good use of a command point. And of course, obviously, the Oath of Moment, which even has a special buff with your Fury of the First ability. And as you might have already guessed, the first place is the Assault Terminator Squad. It costs 200 points, so just like the Relic Terminators, and you have a classic choice of Lightning Claws for 5 attack, strength 5, AP2, damage 1 with full rerolls, or the preferred, I think, choice of Storm Shield and Thunderhammer for 3 attacks at strength 8, AP2, damage 2, hitting on 4s with devastating wounds. Obviously, hitting on 4s isn't great, but with Oath you're gonna be fine, and then you can get the full benefit of devastating wounds because you're gonna be rolling and then re-rolling your entire roll just to fish for those 6s to get as many mortal wounds as possible. Storm Shield itself is awesome because it grants you 4 wounds, which is wonderful against 3 damage threats, which are a bane of Terminators, and you still get some extra protection from other threats like damage 1. Obviously, it's useless against damage 2 because I don't know of any sources of Feel Pains for Terminators that you can get. Probably, maybe there are some for other chapters, not the Gladius Strike Force. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in general, damage 2 stuff will be killing the Terminators with shields or without just the same. If there was a 6-up Feel No Pain option somewhere, then it would change the picture dramatically and the 4 wounds would be even more important. They don't get the Fury of the First, unfortunately, which is a shame, but they force a Battle Shock check onto the unit they charge. Not that great, and I believe that's the biggest disadvantage compared to the regular guys, but I still feel like the ability to get so many mortal wounds onto the target in melee is worth it, and it's worth the first place, but the second is very close one. still get the teleport homer ability like the regular guys, which is understandable. They need it probably even more than the regular Terminators. A very strong choice in my opinion, especially with rerolls from Oath as we discussed, and some character support like Chaplain for +1 to wound or Captain for free stratagem every battle round. Same stratagems are relevant for them as for the basic regular option, but also only in Death Does Duty, and is extremely relevant for them because no one wants to be attacked back by 10 angry Terminators. So tell me which Terminator option you choose in your list and why, and if I forgot something or made a mistake, please let me know, and I'll see you next time.